not you. Oh, interesting. Anyway, I'm just sorry, got wrapped up in Amazon's CEO there for a second, or sorry, SEO. All right, so let's talk about this first. So just to make sure that we're framing this up correctly, you all are here for architecting on AWS, so you're here for the Solutions Architect Associates exam. Now, general statement, it sounds like most, if not all of you, have actually taken the Architecting on AWS class. That class only gives you about 60 to 80% of what you need to pass the exam. So Amazon doesn't say that enough. That class is actually just a separate thing from the certification. It just so happens that they say, take this if you want to learn. But and obviously, if you're looking here on my screen, just to contextualize this for just a second, obviously you can see that the Solutions Architect Associate is here, right? Kind of a mid-tier kind of exam. Out of the 3 exams that are at this associate's level, it's kind of like the middle one. And quite frankly, is usually sought after like 3 to 5 to 1 against all the other certifications. And the reason for that is that it covers the broadest swath of services. So the rest of this, as far as like SysOps and developer and DevOps engineer and Solutions Architect Pro and all this, like, this is the one that the one in yellow is the one that covers the broadest swath of services. So taking this exam that you're looking at is going to be a tremendous like assistance, right, as far as like any other thing you want to go after. Like when people say, hey, I want to go over here and take data analytics and they've never touched AWS, I usually say, please go get your Solutions Architect Associates first. Why? Because then it will make anything that you do around data analytics, you'll actually understand how to design appropriately for it and how to use it appropriately, even though it's a different set of services. If that makes any sense. A couple of things to note about taking these exams is that the cloud practitioner at the very bottom, if you take this exam and then you take this exam renews that exam automatically, but only if you already have it. If you don't have it, it's not going to renew it for you. It's not going to give it to you, right? But if you already have it, any higher level exam will renew the exam beneath it and the exam beneath that. So like I have to take DevOps engineering again here soon. It's going to renew all of these certifications in one fell swoop, right? And to make that clear, because I have too many arrows, is it's going to renew all these certifications in one shot, but only if you already have them. If you don't already have them, it doesn't do it. Now, should you go back and get cloud practitioner and all this other stuff? Only if the number of certifications is important to your organization and to you. Just to say this, you do work for Booz Allen. They're probably just going to look at your topmost certification, just to be frank about it. But the number of certifications does help Booz Allen achieve partner status. So just to tell you this is that, if you maintain this level and go to this level, that's ideal. You don't necessarily need this one. No one cares. Like just to say this in like from a partnership status, no one cares. I care, but they probably don't. So other things to note is that this one's $100. This is $150. This is $300. They're all pretty much 65 questions, right? Trivia exams, but don't let me make that sound like Trivial Pursuit. Obviously a trivia exam. I don't know if you've seen the questions. I was doing DevOps engineering yesterday for a class, and the questions are like a book, like, right? And so, down at Cloud Practitioner, they're real simple. So if you're down at this level, it's like, oh, just a little question about services. If you're down at this level, it's a scenario question. If you're down at this level, it's a tricky scenario question with a lot of subtleties, okay? So the great thing is about doing the Solutions Architect Associate is that there's no hands-on component. If any of you decide to take System Operations Associates, it is the only one that has a hands-on component. Okay, so just remember that. Now, in general, they're all 65 questions, but it's 100 minutes for the cloud practitioner. It's like 180 minutes. Sorry, is that right? No, you know what? Let's go take a look, because now I'm pulling off of memory, and that's always dangerous, right? So let's click into Solutions Architect specifically. 65 question, 130 minutes for the exam. And so you get about a little over 2 hours. If you decide to take any of the other higher level certifications, be forewarned that they are 3 hours, 170 minutes, 180 minutes, et cetera, right? So anyway, the rest of this you should all be very aware of. So, as far as like you've taken the architecting class, so you have a general feel. One other thing that's worth mentioning is that if you haven't looked at it already, make sure that you look at the exam guide. Well, not that. Hold on one second. Sorry, my PDF reader decides to do all this crazy stuff every once in a while. All right, let's try that instead. All right, so if you download the exam guide, so this is just opened up in a PDF reader, right? One thing that you should definitely know is that one, they are going to tell you what they kind of assume that you already know. And so they're going to ask questions that already have this assumed knowledge. What's out of scope, right? This is all listed here. But the main thing I think that's actually really important, including like there's going to be 15 unscored questions and they have multiple single answer and multiple right answer, right? Is that it takes a minimum passing score of 720 to get past the exam. What that means, though, is that the score can go up or down depending on who's been taking the exam. Doesn't that sound fun? The passing score can change based on who's taking the exam recently. Woohoo! So if you got a bunch of aces who just went before you and got perfect scores across the entire thing, the score is higher. I will forewarn you that typically it's not above 800, right? So, you know, general rule of thumb is be shooting for 800 and above. And I'm going to talk about that because later on, I'm going to set some really high bars for you and you might be internally complaining about it. And this is why I'm going to tell you why I'm going to set some high bars for you, because your passing limit could go up to 800, which, you know, that's not messing around, right? Last thing to know about the exam guide that's going to be super useful for you is that notice about a third of the exam for architecting on AWS, sorry, for Solutions Architect Associates, is about designing resilient infrastructures, just a little less than a third, right? 30%, you know, a little less than 30%, by the way, is for designing high performing architecture. So you've got resiliency, high performing architectures, and then you've got security and cost optimization pretty much in that order, right? So security represents about a quarter of the exam. And then, you know, what is that, like a sixth, a seventh, something like that, for design cost optimized infrastructures. So remember, everything in AWS has both a cost implication and a design security implication typically. You know, sometimes it's both. So they're going to want you to know a little bit about that, but what they really want you to do is design for resiliency and high performance, right? So that's what they're looking for. If you want to know what that means to them, this is where you can break it down, right? So based on access patterns, scaling strategies, database based on requirements, compute and storage service based on requirements, that's, you know, all designing a multi-tier architecture. If you want to design for HA or fault tolerant architectures, because remember, this is all about resiliency, how many resources need to be in each availability zone to provide a fault tolerant architecture? How do you mitigate single points of failure, right? How do you improve the reliability of legacy changes when all you're doing, of legacy applications when all you're doing is lift and shift? Select an appropriate DR, right? And then how do you do KPIs that ensure high availability of the solution? Decoupling mechanisms, right, are really key for AWS as well. So whether you're using SNS or SQS or whatever, you know, you're putting in hoc there to decouple things. How do you achieve loose coupling? And when to leverage serverless technologies? What's the answer to when to leverage serverless technologies? The answer is whenever you can, according to AWS. Okay, may not be appropriate for your clients, but just know answer-wise, they are going to push you towards managed services and they're going to push you towards serverless in terms of the answers every single time. And then durability of data service consistency, how it will affect operations, and then data services to meet access requirements, and then storage services that can be used with hybrid or non-cloud native apps. That's all part of the kind of four pieces. So decoupling mechanisms, storage, configuring for high availability, and then doing multi-tier architectures. That's all part of just the designing for resiliency section. Now, designing high performance applications is all about elasticity and scalability. So this is all includes things like metrics, auto scaling, right? You know, how to, like, you know, increase performance. So for example, not using multi-AZ, but maybe using read replicas, right? If you're using RDS, multi-AZ, by the way, doesn't increase performance, it increases resiliency. They'll ask you weird questions like that, by the way. Selecting scalable storage solutions, right? That just, you know, can meet performance needs. High performing network solutions, right? So things like, how do I push like content closer to my users so they can actually get it faster? How do I leverage Amazon's high-speed backbone instead of running things over the internet? We're talking about CloudFront, just in case you were wondering, right? So, this includes edge caching strategies, how to optimize connectivity. What about, VPC endpoints, right? What if we want to keep things off the internet? That's also a security thing, could be a performance thing, just depends, right? And then what about data transfer services? When do you use Direct Connect and when do you use the whole Snow family of devices, including Snowmobile, Snowball, Snow Cone? I swear, who names these things? Anyway, moving on. Choosing a high-performing database solution, right? First of all, how do you scale databases? Particularly as it relates to DynamoDB's kind of like on-demand and auto-provisioning pieces. And then how do you scale an RDBMS, which is traditionally harder if you're not using Aurora? And then where does caching make sense? And then how do you know which service to meet which need, right? Like, do you know what the name is of the data warehousing service? Do you know the name of the streaming services, right? What if they want to do analytics and they want fuzzy search? What if they want, a commercial option and they want clustering? Is that possible on RDS? Those are the kind of questions they're going to ask. We pause for a moment. Does anyone have any questions before I move on to the other two domains? No comments? Interpretive eye stances of your career. Okay. Just know I'm open to sock puppets, so don't feel like you got to hold back, okay? All right. So then that was all, by the way, just about performance. So, and they're going to make clean distinctions. They're going to test whether you understand the fault tolerance and resiliency or whether you understand performance. Sometimes they'll munge them together because, hey, why not? And then security, right? How do you design secure access? This is where you're going to talk about all kinds of stuff around IAM, a little bit about the secure token service. So if you don't know what STS is when you see it, right? Do you authenticate into the third-party data store first? Like the third-party, authentication provider like LDAP first? Or do you authenticate with AWS first? By the way, there's only one right answer to that. And the answer is you always authenticate with the external provider first, and then you authenticate in with AWS, right? So that's the kind of thing they're going to ask questions about. How do you design secure application tiers? What are the two main firewalls inside of AWS? What's the difference between them? Oh, and by the way, do you know about the third firewall, the network firewall? Yeah, we'll talk about it. And then selecting appropriate data security options, like how do you secure data at rest? How do you secure data in transit? How do you do key management? How do you do certificate management, right? If you don't know ACM, that it exists and what it does, that may be a problem. When do you use secrets manager, by the way, versus using the parameter store inside a systems manager, right? Got to know the distinctions. They're going to ask you lots of weird questions about that. And then cost optimization, like which tools, right, are you going to use? What's the most cost-effective storage options? Do you know the difference between S3 standard, infrequent access standard, infrequent one zone, Glacier, and Glacier Deep Archive, right? And then, how do you automatically, by the way, ensure that data classification happens? And what access patterns will drive which tier of S3 storage you're going to use? Do you also know, by the way, the 4 disk drive types and which ones are going to be used for what? Including the 5th one, instant storage, which no one should be using, but you need to know how it operates, right? Because they're going to ask questions on it. And then identifying cost-effective compute and database services, right? Like figuring out what's going to be more expensive, what's going to be more simple. And by the way, when they say cost, they're also considering operational costs. So it gets really weird because it's not just dollars. They want you to know which is going to cost soft money in terms of people, right? Effort and time. And then optimizing network architectures, and then I think that there should be, that's it. Oh, okay. So costing is actually pretty simple. They don't really talk about tools. Hold on one second. I thought they had a section on tools. I feel like there's something missing here, but it could just be me spending too much time in here. All right. Oh, any questions about those two domains before we go forward? Security and cost optimization. So in your brain, think to yourself, because I just gave you a bunch of information. Resiliency, right? Performance, security, and cost. Those are the 4 things they're going to test you on. So if you need to hone in, if it's not about resiliency, performance, and those are design rubrics, designing for security or designing for costs, you're probably down a rabbit hole that you probably don't want to spend time on, unless you just want to spend a lot of time over Christmas studying, which, you know, I get a lot done actually the week between Christmas and New Year's when I work a full-time job. So I usually don't even take vacation because it's just kind of like a vacation, you know, it's just like really catch up on all my emails, getting my plans ready. All right. So that's the exam guide. So that should give you a lot of context for what we're focusing on. I'm going to run through this right now because I want to make sure that everyone's comfortable with this. Did all of you get vouchers? Because like Errol, I know you're signed up, but did you all get vouchers of some type, or you're all doing out of pocket for this?
I got a voucher.
Excellent. All right. Oh, Nagabarathi, sorry. And Adam. Hey, Adam, how's it going? Nagabarathi. Does that mean cherish snake in Sanskrit? That's cool. Nagabarathi, like curious, what is your experience with AWS?
Who was that directed at?
Sorry, that was at Nagabarathi. Don't worry, Adam. I'm asking you next. All right, I think Nagabarathi stepped away for a second, so we'll catch him. Adam, what's your experience with AWS?
No, I use it as part of my job, but I'm kind of more of a beginner level.
Oh, well, if you use it as part of your job, you're probably further along than you think, actually. Do you have any other certifications? And I'm assuming you've taken architecting on AWS, correct?
Correct.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure. I'll ask Nagabarathi when he gets back. Greg Wagner, hi. Have you taken architecting on AWS?
I have not. I've only taken our practitioners course. Just checking in to see if we had some participants this morning. And just so you know, everybody should have a voucher. It was included with the program. And this afternoon, the same thing in the practitioners prep. They should all have vouchers as well.
Good. Yeah, I was just testing them to see if they knew they had vouchers.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. So my experience is, yes, 25 years in the industry, conversationally good with it. Got to pass my practitioner's exam this year just because I want to get it done. So anyway, that's me.
I'm just kind of harassing Greg, by the way. He's my partner in crime. So he's the mastermind behind setting all these up. So Greg is the amazing kind of liaison person for Booz Allen and has been working with them for a long time. So he facilitates most of your classes with us, with Booz, right? So he's the primary driver and leader for that. Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
All right, we guys have fun. I've got to jump into another call in a few minutes. Have fun. Enjoy the session.
Right. Thanks, Greg.
All right, bye.
All right, so let's see. And there was, Nagabarathi, you're back. So Nagabarathi, you've taken architecting on AWS, yes? And do you have production experience with AWS?
Yes, I do.
Cool. Yes to both.
Yes to both, but I think I still need to prepare a lot for the test. Looking at the content, right? It's like you all know, I don't need to talk about the content, but I still need to work before I take the cert.
Okay, good. Well, good. I think we're all in the same boat, honestly. So, by the way, I was just saying, does your name mean cherished snake in Sanskrit, Nagabarathi?
Actually, you're perfect. Like the first part of my name, the Naga means the snake, but the second part means it's a goddess for learning.
Like Saraswati. Okay, cool.
Oh my God, yeah. You're good, Michael.
Good. Yeah. I like to know I like the origin of names, so I always try to figure out people's names, so it's good. Well, good to have you here. So we just went over the exam guide, and now what I'm going to do is that for all of you who have vouchers, we're going to just talk about those logistics. Just to structure this a little bit, in case you missed my rambling with Errol and I think Ryan earlier, is that we're going to just go through some logistics. That's not going to take much longer. And then we're going to spend the rest of the time going through exam questions. And I'm going to deconstruct the exam questions, and I'm going to show you how to methodically recognize where you are gapped and where you're super strong and the things you want to look at. So I just want to make sure I structure that out for everybody. That's actually what we're doing. So I'm just going to go through a few more logistics. Then we're going to roll over to exam questions, like practice exam questions. And then we're just going to practice that. So literally, if you haven't studied for the exam, we're going to study together. So you're going to get some study in. And here's the cool thing is that you're going to get to ask questions. And I've been doing cloud. Oh, I guess I should talk about myself. I've been doing cloud since 2011. I've been in the industry for 25 years. I have all the certifications that are not specialty. And I actually have to retake the DevOps engineering one on Friday. Woohoo! Got to recertify on that one. And I teach, I spend about 90% of my time teaching Booz employees about AWS, and Kubernetes. So I do containers as well for people. So I actually just took this one recently. Okay, so let's talk about scheduling an exam. So it's going to work the same for everybody, is that you basically just type in AWS certification, you could click on Solutions Architect Associates, and then you click on schedule an exam. Now, once you're here, you click on sign in, unless you know for certain someone has told you that you have to use the APN login, because there are a few people at Booz who have the APN login. You're going to join the rest of us on the left-hand side. You're not going to log into the APN login. So see where it says use an Amazon account, not AWS? Hopefully, by the way, you can use your personal Amazon account. Booz doesn't care. They're not going to track you down. Sometimes, by the way, if you are on the partner network, you actually have to use a corporate account. But for the most part, you can just use whatever account makes you comfortable. Once you get logged in, by the way, it's going to redirect you to what's called a cert metrics site. So if you look at the URL on the upper left-hand side, it says cert metrics, right? And what happens here is you can see your benefits, any digital badges, your achieved certifications, your exam history, blah, 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 right? Now, what happens is that if you want to register for an exam, you can actually click that button or just click up at the top. And notice, by the way, that I have a DevOps engineering exam and I have my first specialty exam coming up. Glenn for punishment. So what's going to happen here is that you just scroll down and look for your eligible exams. And then you can come down here and look for the administrator's associates. Reminder, sorry, not sysops administrator, architecting associates. Reminder that if you ever decide to take this exam in particular, it has a hands-on component. Okay. But since we're not doing that and we're taking the associates, architect associates exam, you're going to switch over, and we usually schedule with Pearson VUE. And if you do that, what will happen is that it's going to log you back in to yet another site. So isn't this cool? You get to visit a bunch of sites with only clicking a few clicks. And then the first question it's going to ask you is that you do want to go to a test center or do you want to take it at home? Now I'm just going to throw this out there. I have a bunch of friends. I'm in Atlanta. I have a bunch of friends who work for the CDC, right? You know, the Omicron is out there. It's a little weird. We're not going to get into the details of the politics and all that. I would actually tell you that I would prefer that you take it at a testing center. And I'm going to tell you, but I'm not going to show you that. Testing center is easy. You go in, you find your nearest testing center, you go in. Why? Because I'm going to show you what you have to do online or at home. And it's not fun. It's easier if you go to the testing center. Okay, I'm just going to say that. But I also want you to be safe and I want you to do what's comfortable and what's right for you and your family and your situation. But I just want you to know you're going to have an easier time doing this if you go to a testing center. Okay, you can mask up and glove up and do whatever, but I'm just going to let you know testing center is going to be easier. But let's say that's not possible because you're in the middle of nowhere. Just know that you do have an online at home option. But I want you to just take this in for a moment. If you do it at home, you need to clear your desk off of everything but one monitor, a keyboard and mouse and a desktop or a laptop, because you can't have anything on your desk and you can't have a second monitor. You also have to be able to take pictures of all four sides of your desk. So if your desk is up against a wall or a window, like most rational, sane people, I'm just kidding, I'm not judging you if it's not that way, you should, pull it, you should pull it away. Here's what I do instead. So I usually grab a laptop, and by the way, don't use a Chromebook, right? I usually grab a laptop and I just take this laptop and I go out to my dining room, pull my dining room table away from the wall, run a cable, because I've got 50-foot flat cables from my router all the way over to my computer, and I just take it on this laptop. That's it. We're done, right? Make sure the power's plugged in, obviously. I also kick out my dog and my kids, not necessarily in that order, and tell them to get out, right? And don't come back until I'm done with the exam. Just so you're aware, I had this happen to me on exam. I had a small dog running around. I don't know why I have a small dog. That's a whole story we're not going to get into. But the chain was rattling the entire time. It drove the test takers crazy. They kept having me pick up my laptop and look at the room because they are trying to control the environment, because there are people who abuse the whole at home proctor thing. So just know that you don't want kids. The second time, by the way, my 14-year-old just came in and was like, "Hey, Dad, what's going on?" And they're like, "Stop." You know, they gave me a warning, had to, hey, remember, buddy, when we talked about me taking a 3-hour exam that cost me $300 that I didn't want to lose the money on, and you weren't going to burst in here. You get the idea. Okay. So, that's why I say it's easier to take it to testing center, right? Your kid's not going to follow you to the testing center and burst in. Okay. But regardless, if you take it at home, clear your desk, go to an isolated environment, make sure you take pictures of all 4 sides, tell your family to leave you alone. And just know they're going to be nice about it. But if you like do that 2 or 3 times, they will cancel your exam. You won't get your money back. And you're done at that point in time. Other weird things you should know about the testing environment. You can't go like this. You can't have a watch on, right? You can't you can't signal or do anything. They're going to give you a warning, right? In general, just try to stay as still as possible. You also can't go to the bathroom. So don't drink a lot of water beforehand. Like, I think I drank like some kind of like caffeinated sports drink before I took my second exam. That was a mistake, just so you know. Nothing like the pressure of only having 45 minutes left on 20 questions. And you also have to go to the bathroom, and you can't because you can't leave. So don't do that either. Okay. So also make sure that that you have all your IDs together. So make sure you have a passport or a driver's license or whatever. They actually ask that you show up for your appointment 30 minutes early. Okay. So I make it sound like really cumbersome. You just need to figure out your process, right? If it's not a dining room table, if it's not an external training site, just set it up, right? So I just want you to know it's not something you can just walk into. You got to think about it a little bit. All right. So once you've, figured out your photo IDs and, you got the 30-minute time and your computer runs past the system tests and you've actually read the documentation on acceptable spaces. One time I tried to take it in a warehouse. They were like, oh no, you cannot, because they can't acoustically fingerprint a warehouse. It's too large. Right. So, right. There could be somebody across the way with a big sign. They can't see it. That cracked me up. There's a bunch of languages that are possible, at least written wise. For some reason, they ask you what your preferred language is for the exam, and they have a bunch of kind of like potential options. And then they're going to confirm that like you are indeed doing what you want to do. And then the next thing they're going to ask you is they're going to ask you to agree to give away your first, second, and third born, which I was almost tempted, but I said, yeah, yes to most of this. They are going to do facial comparison. So just be mindful. This is going to cover, by the way, all the stuff around cancellations. You can change your appointment 3 times. They're going to ask you to cancel it. You can cancel or shift it up to 48 hours. So if you want to shift it, but if it's within 48 hours of the appointment, you can't change it. We can talk about your certification account, rescheduling, cancellation, some policies. Just want to make sure you see this. I wasn't just making that up. You really can't go to the bathroom. Sorry. Notice also that you won't be able to use Scout Scraper mumbling or speaking out loud. I used to talk to myself in exams. Hey, other Michael, what do you think about this? Should we go for design or resiliency? I don't know, Michael. I think, maybe we should stick with security. No, don't do that. Yeah, they'll give you a warning and then you're going to get cut off, right? Look at this. I want you to see that. Don't stand up. You can't even stretch. So do some yoga, get a hot shower in. I don't know what it's going to take. Put a massager on your chair. It doesn't matter to me. Just know, like, you can't leave. Kind of make it sound really harsh, isn't it? It's a little bit of a badge of honor to pass one of these exams remotely. Okay, and this is where it gets weird. So you had all those written languages, but now you've either got Japanese or English. Anyway, I would have thought, like, I don't know, French, Chinese, maybe, some language from South America, maybe a language from Africa. I don't know. Like, it's that's really Japanese and Chinese. I'm sorry, Japanese and English. That's, I don't know, weird. Let's move on. So anyway, that's just the verbal language. I was half tempted to do Japanese just to see if I would get somebody in Japan. I wasn't like sure. Anyway, so then you select a date. So let's say you want to take it on Saturday. One thing of note that I will recommend for you, please choose a time where you are awake without coffee. Like where you're like naturally at your peak. So, because you're going to be nervous, and if you drink coffee and you're nervous, then you can easily get jacked up. Anyway, ideally you would do it at a time you're just like naturally awake, like 10, 11, whatever time that is, right? Note that you can go 24/7 on this. I had somebody one time who had to squeeze it in and they took it at midnight. It's like, that's impressive.
I just didn't go. So, and then here there is,
Hi, JP, are you talking to us?
no, never mind. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. You could talk to us. I'm just letting you know, but it's okay. You're talking to somebody else. So let's say we pick 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I usually pick military time just to make sure there's no confusion. And then they're going to once again confirm that this is what you wanted, right? Solutions architect exam. There's the appointment, right? Notice, by the way, that they gave me 140 minutes. That wasn't what it said on the webpage, by the way. Anyway, doesn't matter. Sometimes, by the way, if they will add extra questions to the exam that don't count towards your score. I think they increase the time sometimes because they've added extra questions. So then you're going to proceed to checkout. All right, for those of you who have a voucher, this is where the magic happens, which according to Greg is all of you, right? So you stick your voucher in here, you scroll down and click apply. If I remember correctly, the billing information goes away once you apply your voucher. I think it goes away if I remember correctly. And then what then happens is then you just stick in, whatever your thing is that you're going to do, right? Including billing information, whatnot. When you click next, it's going to confirm one last time. You click confirm, it's going to charge you. You will immediately get an email. And it's going to send you a bunch of emails, usually 3 days before, a day before. And the emails are all going to contain the same thing. You have an appointment. Here are the 4 things you have to have ready in order to be able to take this test. System, environment, documentation, and I can't even remember the 4th one, but something else, right? So your voucher is going to be entered here on this payment page. Do note that when you pass an exam, they're going to give you access to their store, and they're going to give you discounts, 50% discounts for your next exams. So I was joking about paying $300 because actually only pay $150 if you want to take one of the higher level exams, because they're going to give you these codes. I don't know if I have access to that. Let's see. Oh no. There we go. Yeah, that's what I thought. You always lose my context. Let's go back in. There we go. So under benefits, by the way, and these are all used, so feel free to steal them. Is that you get discount like free exam vouchers, and you also get 50% discounts on your exams. Notice I've used mine a lot. And then you get access to like store access, and if you go to reInvent, you get special things. I'm sure you're not doing it for that, but just so you know, you also get access to their LinkedIn community on as well. Okay. Questions of any type about the registration process?
Can you, if I signed up for the taking the test remotely, if I wanted to switch it to doing it in the center, would I have to cancel first? And then,
I think you have to cancel and reschedule, but you could also just call them if you're like, don't want to do that. Like you could call them and see, and you can usually chat with them, and they're usually really responsive. If you want to chat with them and see if they'll switch it, but they're probably going to say, hey, why don't you cancel it and just reschedule?
Gotcha.
Yeah. And they'll give it back to you. Okay. Do know that once you pass, you get a digital badge. Let's see, where's mine at? Here, let's switch gears. Can you still see my screen, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So in my signature, like I have my well, there's my I am an Amazon authorized instructor, in case I didn't tell you that. But you get a link to Credly, which is your certs, and so all of your, well, not all of your certs. There's like a lot of certs here. So they won't all, there'll be like pages of them, but all of your certifications will show up here. So they'll have to scroll through if they want to see all of them, if you've got more than a certain level. Nice. So that's Credly. And so you'll have access to that as part of, getting signed in as well. And once you pass an exam. Let's see. Something, anything else to say? When you're going through your Achieve certifications, so my certifications are split between 2 accounts, unfortunately. But let's see. This one for March. If you want to see your score, you can actually, in a couple of days after you pass the exam, you can actually download what's called the certificate, and it will show you not only the certificate that you passed, but if you go back to this and you go at your exam history, you can actually download a report that shows how you did. So obviously I passed. I got an 871 on the last time I took it, right? And so it'll show you exactly what your score is. It unfortunately does not show you the breakdown of whether, like, for example, I am really great at designing for resiliency, or I'm horrible at designing for security, right? So it doesn't necessarily tell you what you got right or wrong as far as like domains go. So if that's important to you, unfortunately, you can't find that out, but you can get your total number, right? By the way, just to see this, see how the scaled score to pass the exam was 750, right? It changes a little bit once you go up to like professional. What did I get for the last time I took the Solution Architect Associate? Where was that? Oh God, that was last year. Let's see. I might have done horribly. I'm about to out myself. You guys are all like, oh my God. Oh, see, look at that. 798. Skin of my teeth, right? I probably didn't study for that one. Notice that it's still set for 720 for this one. All right.
Are the questions weighted evenly? So out of that, like 1,000, I guess points, is it if you just divide that by 65? Or?
I asked that actually of learning development. The questions are not weighted evenly, right? There's a little bit more weight given to the percentages that they listed actually in there. So not only will they ask more questions in those areas, but there's more weight given to those questions as well. When I asked for like the weighting breakdown, they were like, we can't give that to you. Okay. That's fun. Yeah. All right. So the main thing you should take away from this is that you can get your certificate, you're going to get a digital badge, and you can find your score if you really want to dig it up. Okay. Any questions about any of that? Okay. Hey, Matthew, did I ask if you had taken the architecting class and if you had deployed it to production workload on AWS?
Yes.
I did. Okay. And then JP, did I ask you? I don't think I asked you.
No, you didn't. Could you repeat the question, please, Michael?
Absolutely. Did you take the architecting on AWS class, and have you deployed a production workload on AWS?
No, I've not done that.
So
And I did take a class.
Okay. Good. You don't necessarily need to. I was just curious at that level. By the way, other than Errol, who I know for certain has done it, has anybody else taken any of the Tutorial Dojo's practice exams?
I've run through the first pool, but only about 50%, a handful of times.
Okay. Anybody else?
I was actually going to ask you, that's one of my questions I have teed up for you is if we were going to, focus on one of the review sets in the tutorials dojos. I'm sure you're going to get to this, but
oh yeah,
which one should it be?
I'm gonna give you the steps, the specific steps. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Just so you're aware, also the firm is pressuring all of us that have been delinquent in trying to get this accomplished by next week on the 15th of December.
Are you telling me that you're all delinquents, heathens, and rebels?
I'm likely telling you that, yes, based on the amount of work that this firm throws at us. So
you're in the right tribe then.
Okay.
Perfect. Are you kidding? Just so you know, and I know this sounds, because I deal with booze all the time. I actually had to do a class, an advanced architecting class on AWS. Those guys had 2 weeks to take a professional level exam. None of them had the associate's level. 2 weeks to take pro. They had to take it on Friday. I was like, man, that's brutal. So they're doing nothing but 6 hours a day of exam practice. So anyway, it could get worse, right? But Ryan, but yes, I acknowledge that booze does, as most consulting firms do, throws a tremendous amount of work your way. So all right, so there's a lot of pressure for you to take the exam by the 17th. No, the 15th.
Yeah, the 15th. Yeah, so I don't even know if we could schedule the test by then, but yeah, they want us to try to take it by literally next week.
Okay. So, just know, like, for those of you who have gotten that direct communication, like, you want to schedule your exam today. So just so you know, as soon as possible. Okay. So then it's good that we're going to practice together then today. And I will give you very clear strategy. I just want you to know that if that is the case, if you're shorting for a certification on the 15th, you're going to do nothing but practice exams between now and the 15th. I'm going to give you some other resources, but you're probably not going to touch them until you're interested and you don't have the pressure of taking the certification. Okay. Let me cover this one other resource that has a booze employee having taken a class you actually have access with. So how many of you logged into webage.quicklabs.com when you took your class for architecting?
I did.
Yeah. Good.
Yep.
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 All right. So if you took it, and you're not going to see the same view because I have a classroom added to mine. You probably have access to your labs that were in webage.quicklabs.com. You probably have access to them for months. So just know you can always go back and do the labs from the class again. But here's why I'm pointing this out to you. Webage.quicklabs.com is a partner site for AWS with us. If you go to amazon.quicklabs.com, which I will post that link actually in chat so you can have it. If you go to amazon.quicklabs.com, that will give you access to Amazon's public site. Now, a login has not been created for you here by us because this is the public site. But if you create a login and you use your bah.com email, and please don't use the number, please use last name _ first name, and you create your bah.com, you have all been pre-approved to get unlimited credits for any lab that you want to do on amazon.quicklabs.com. So if we keep talking about DynamoDB and you're like, I don't even understand what you're talking about when you say a NoSQL database, Michael. That doesn't make any sense to me. If you go to catalog, and by the way, you just create your login, it's going to send you a confirmation email. You click to confirm, and then you can just log in. When you log in and you have to create a login. So you have to create an account. When you create an account using your bah.com email address, and that's, for all of you here, it's going to give you credits. And so see how it says 8 credits under my profile name? You're going to have anywhere from like 10 to 500 credits there. And just so you know, you're sharing them with a bunch of other people. So it's going to go up and down. If you ever see this at 0 and you want to run a lab, just send an email to support@webagesolutions.com and say, hey, we're out of credits. Usually, we have an alert, by the way, that auto renews these credits once it's failed. But just so you know.
Yeah, all our labs are expired, by the way, because our course was in the summer. I think we had 3 months after.
Ah, okay. So it was a while ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. So no, by the way, you'll have credits here. So you can actually you can spend these credits, and you can spend as many of these credits as are available. And if you hit the 0, again, just ask Web-based Solutions to update it, and we will, right? Usually we're pretty proactive about it. It's been a while since people have hit 0. But let's say you're out here and you're like, Michael, we keep talking about DynamoDB, and it's not driving it home as a concept. If you want to go out here and touch DynamoDB, first of all, there are free labs you can do. But if you need to go a little deeper, because if we keep talking about streams, or you need to understand the difference between scans, queries, and indexes, or you want to build a serverless web application, or you don't know how to monitor it, all the labs you did in class, this is over and above extra labs that you can do at your discretion. So like monitoring here as an example, you just hit start lab, eat the credits. It's going to ask you, hey, do you want to spend 10 credits? And then it's going to walk you through the same process that you did when you were in class. As a booze employee who has taken a class with us, you have unlimited access to this, and it does not expire. So as long as they're a partner with Amazon as the primary lab provider, you're going to have access to this. So whenever that relationship ends, it may shift. Okay. So just know this is a great way to get hands-on experience if you're one of the people who actually needs to be more hands-on. And just to say this, it's been debunked in so many studies about whether we're visual learners or auditory learners. We're all sense learners, right? And we are primarily visual just because we are that way. So just know though, it's only going to help you if you're not getting something to switch the mode by which you're learning. So if reading about it and watching videos and listening about it isn't driving it home, then go put your hands on it, right? So if you're having trouble with a topic, right? Like AWS config or DynamoDB, or you don't know how autoscaling works, right? Go out here and do a lab, okay? They have practically every core service. So autoscaling, for example, is out here. One interesting EC2 autoscaling. I think even they have a Redshift lab. So like if you haven't touched Redshift, here's advanced operations to Redshift. If you're like, hey, I don't really know what CloudFront is, can you please tell me, Michael? CloudFront's out here, right? So here's an introduction that's free. Questions about that? Okay. All right, so then let's move off the potatoes and let's get to the meat. Let's get to the core dish, okay? Let's see, billing account. All right, so Tutorials Dojo. Use my brain. Let's see. So welcome to Tutorials Dojo. And then what happens here is, first of all, who's not signed up for Tutorials Dojo?
I don't think I am.
All right, JP, here's the deal. You have to register with your like last name _ first name at bh.com. You have to go create an account on the Tutorials Dojo account. You can just go to the TD portal login, which I will gladly share with you, assuming that it loads up, right? And so what will happen there is that once you get logged in, Wait a second. Once you get registered, your email address, JP, has already been set, has like an allow list. It usually takes 24 hours. Sometimes it's less. You'll get an email that says, hey, you've been registered for Solutions Architect Associates test taking. And then what will happen is then you'll have access to the practice exams. Okay. So just so you know, it can take up to 24 hours. If you do not see it, by let's say tomorrow morning, just send an email to support@WebAge Solutions and let us know. Or if you have access to a Basecamp, you can just post it there. Okay. Support@WebAge Solutions. Okay. But everybody else has access then, I'm assuming, no?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. All right. So that should cover most of the logistics. So once you get your name registered, you're then, by the way, registered for like whatever class or whatever you've got complete, you've gone for. And then at that point, it should show up in my courses, right? Now, we are focused on the Solutions Architect Associates exam, not the Pro, Architect Associates. Here's how ideally you are going to do this for the remainder of your time. First of all, don't do the timed mode. Why? Because I want you to get the answer right away. The timed mode is pretty much like taking the exam, right? Which is great for testing whether or not you're actually going to pass, but not as optimal for learning, right? We want to use these for learning, not just to practice taking the exam, right? So this is where the review mode comes in. Now there is topic-based and there is section-based. I would only consider doing that if you consider yourself extremely weak in an area, either security, billing, resiliency, or fault performance, sorry. Otherwise, stay in the review mode section. And you can pick any one of these 6 exams that you want, but here's the deal. You're going to repeat one of these sets again and again and again until you can get 90%. And then you're going to move on to another set. You're going to repeat that set again and again and again until you can get 90%. Why? Because I want you to be methodical about it. And yes, it is somewhat memorization, but I'm going to show you why it's not just straight memorization. So if you haven't seen these before, which I hope you have, let's pick on set 3. Oh, so blazing fast. John Bonzo, by the way, the guy who does this site, he's an amazing individual. Got a didactic memory, like a photographic memory. Works with Amazon to make sure that he doesn't violate any of their constraints as far as like how the exam questions are written. Best site I've seen thus far, better than Stefan Merrick, better than anybody else. for the exam questions. Thus far, everybody who has used this within a reasonable time frame, so not you all, has passed the exam on first try. I'm making no guarantees for you all. It's going to be a level of effort thing for those of you who are going to be speed running through the preparation. Okay, so here's the reason why we love John so much. First of all, you're not going to see this on the exam, so just be prepared. You're not going to see the categorization on the exam, okay? I've written to John about this. I was like, hey man, take it off, take it off, right? But the rest of this is all legit. This is what it's going to look like, right? So we get a fintech startup to put an application on an Amazon EC2 instance, and it's got instant store volumes and an elastic IP address. What? The server is only accessed from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and can be stopped from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. for cost efficiency using Lambda with a script that does this, which, by the way, Amazon has a service for this called Instant State, or you could use Systems Manager, State Manager. So Systems Manager, by the way, has this as well. So which of the following will occur when the EC2 instance is stopped and started? Right? Now, we're just going to swag this one, so I'm not going to ask you to answer this cold, right? But let's see. All the data on the attached instant store device will be lost. That sounds right, because it's an instant store, right? So if you try to stop it, start it, that's what's going to happen. Let's see. The elastic is just this with the instance. Underlying host is possibly changed, right? That's actually possibly true as well. I don't think the EIP detaches, but maybe I'm wrong. So let's just check it out, because maybe I'm just over here like making it up, right? So it turns out, those are correct, right? It turns out that the EIP is not disassociated. The ENI is definitely not disassociated. There's going to be changes. Why would you say that? Anyway, here's why we love John. First of all, he's going to tell you like, well, yep, you did get it correct. Here's why the correct answer is the correct answer. Here's a pretty diagram to look at it. And then he's going to say, hey, this is how this works with instant storage. And then he's going to re-verify these are correct answers. He's going to tell you why these answers are wrong. ENI is going to stay even if you stop. EIP will remain associated even if you stop it. And then there'll be a lot of possible changes once you stop and start it. I just want to mention this, by the way. Technically, you can't stop an instance with instant storage. Like, I think you can pause it, but stop doesn't even show up as an option. So that's kind of weird. You can shut it down. Anyway, moving on. So then he's going to show you all the references for how he derived this information from AWS. So he's going to give you the source documentation. And then he's going to give you a cheat sheet. So if you miss like 5 questions on EC2, you should go look at the cheat sheet, right? And then if he has a study guide, you can look at that, but just ignore that, right? If you want to see it, by the way, just so we can look at it. This study guide is long and rambling, talks about all the white papers and all the stuff you want to read. We have a shorthand version that actually has all this. And just so you know, this is overtraining. So it's a lot. Okay. So, but it did, by the way, one thing that John does have in here that's cool is that he does have a list of all the core services to focus on. So if you're like, hey, I wonder if Redshift is on here, right? If you're like, is Redshift on here? No, you should know what Redshift is, but no, it's not on the thing, right? So notice it's not listed. Okay. All right, so back to where we were. So we're on review mode set 3. And so that gives you an idea of like how to use this. So let me ask you this. What's the percentage that I'm asking you to go after for each of the review sets that you do? What's the number? 90. Now you might say to me, Michael, that seems like really high. Why 90? Well, 1, the exam questions are going to be different. So you're going to lose a few points because they're not going to match. 2, you're going to be stressed. Even if you're really good at handling it, you're going to be slightly nervous and stressed because you just are. Because it actually means something if you don't pass, right? And so just know that you're going to lose a few points. So we're shooting for 90s because we want you to actually get 80s and above, right? And if you get a 90, whatever, a 96, or great, but just know that we're preparing you for a little slightly higher level. Questions of any type around anything I just talked about?
So Michael, I'm seeing like the practice test I recently took, this was out of the first set group. It's labeled as quiz 7 out of 30. So you're suggesting we go through all 30 and at least get a 90% out of on all of them before going to another set. Right?
Wait, so just to check, I only have 6 sets of questions for Tutorials Dojo.
Yeah, same here. I got 6.
So if you click on, like, I'm in like the first set right now, and then inside of that it says that I'm taking quiz number 7 of 30. So is that out of the total number of sets, or?
Oh yes, that's of all the possible quizzes that you could take.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in other words, there's the final test quiz, there's 13 quizzes on topic exam, right?
And it's totaling them. I got you.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's totaling all the quizzes together. The only ones I care about are the review mode ones. Like those are the only ones that really matter.
Cool. So that first set is just one. It's one practice test. So essentially, just 6.
Yeah. So this first set, each of these is 65 questions.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter which one you choose. Our minimum recommendation is that you do at least 2 sets, preferably 3 sets if you have time, right? 2 sets will get you there. 3 sets will definitely get you there. If you have time for 4, 5, and 6, you're going to be swinging home runs across that finish line, right? So, yeah. But again, with this deadline that we're talking about, it's probably going to be 2 sets, possibly 3.
And Michael, this is Bharti. So the questions in the review mode and the timed mode, are they exactly the same?
Same pool of questions, just shuffled around differently.
Okay, thank you.
Same questions, by the way, in the topic and the section based as well, just obviously focused by topic and section. So think of a pool, if these are 65 questions apiece, right? There's a pool of 390 questions. And so what they do is, they obviously shuffle them around for time. They shuffle them around for review. If you're in the section or the topic base, they actually just separate them by topic or the section they're relevant for. Ryan, did I answer all your questions from earlier, the unspoken ones about how to use it?
Yeah, especially now that you said kind of focus on the 2. I'm assuming, do you know by chance, like the bank, is there repeats across each of the banks for like questions? Okay, they're all uniques.
Yeah, they're uniques. So
okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So just to recap. So this is the middling certification, right? So this is the middle of the pro versus the cloud practitioner, right? Oh, by the way, it takes 3 years for the certification to expire. 65 questions, supposed to be 120 or 130 minutes. Looks like it's 140 for when I registered. So just know that, and you know a whole thing about taking it in person versus taking it remote. Now about the amazon.quicklabs.com. So if you need more hands-on experience, you also now know about Tutorials Dojo and the practice exams and how we want you to use them. We want you to review 1 review mode set at a time, get a 90%, and then move on to the next review mode set. So get a 90%. If you have time for a 3rd, do that as well. One other thing I'm going to point out, and then we're going to dive into practice exams, is that you have access to a study guide. If you're ever in a space where you need to get a step-by-step access, like what's available, if I want to study for a certain role, I need you to kind of like bookmark this page, because this is going to help you both by role and by technology. So for example, these are the ramp up guides. They're written by AWS and influenced and co-written by some of us, right? If we download this guide right here, the architecting guide, and this is the ramp up guide for architecting on AWS, this will list all of the resources that AWS has in order. So like, for example, they're going to assume that you have cloud practitioner, by the way. Pricing web page, pricing white paper, well-architected web page, well-architected white paper. They're going to give you links to all the resources. So if you need to deep dive into a topic because you don't really understand it, you can look at your student guide from the class. You can also come here and find the relevant topic in question. This is a great way to ramp up from 0 to 100 on taking your, getting prepped for your the role in question. Okay. Notice that down here, as you get past all of this study opportunity, right, you do actually have the solutions architect exam. If you want to keep going because you want the pro, then it will basically add a few more things and teach you how to get ready for the pro as well. Okay. I feel like this is like shortened for some reasons, but whatever. Now, also know that below the role-based guides, there are the technology-based guides. So if you need to know about containers, data analytics, databases, Internet of Things, security, etc., storage, networking, serverless, machine learning, there are other ramp-up guides to ramp up on these technologies with AWS. Okay. So just know that you can use these to train yourself up. Okay.
So Michael, the order would be to do the tutorial dojo followed by the ramp up guides as needed.
Yes, do tutorial dojo. If you don't like John's cheat sheets, go find the relevant information inside the ramp up guides. So like if you need more like deeper dive on EC2 auto scaling, you can like find it inside the ramp up guide for architecting. So just keep that in your back pocket. I'm sure that you're going to get a project at some point in Booz where you have been assigned to the project because and you have no idea about the actual technologies that are being used. I know that's probably never happened to any of you, but I'm sure that someday you'll be put on a project where you don't actually know the technologies. So also keep that in your back pocket because it can actually allow you to ramp up quickly, right? Like CI/CD on AWS or right. Okay. So here's what I'm going to advocate. Let's just take a short break. When you come back, we're going to run through a bunch of practice questions, and then we're going to, and we'll take another break later on. Is that acceptable? Are we good? Questions?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. So it's at 9:10 right now. Why don't we just come back in 10 minutes? We'll take a longer break here later. But yeah, come back at 9:20. I'll put up a little timer.
Michael, if I could, before we break, so what's the first step for me to get going?
So really the first step to get going is to do the practice exams for Tutorials Dojo. I know that you don't necessarily have access to that right now, JP. So what I might do is that until you get like that accessible and registered, is that I might want to do the AWS practice exams, which I can show you where those are when we come back, if that works.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking. All right, we'll see you in about 10 minutes. So let's say 9:21.